using data to find an underrated 11 here. Lots of value on its way. You've gone for a different goalkeeper to me. You've gone for Dean Henderson. Why?
Dean Henderson, Crystal Palace's Dean Henderson. I have lent heavily on the data here. And typically when I look for the best player for the season, led by data, I look at a metric called goals prevented. And if people aren't aware of this, rather than just maybe looking at clean sheets, save percentage, that sort of thing, I like to look at, okay, what is the quality of chances that the goalkeeper's faced, and then how many goals have they conceded, and that difference between the two. If there's a higher goals prevented value, then they've had a really good, strong shot-stopping season. And Dean Henderson is the second highest of any goalkeeper in the Premier League this season with 5.5 goals prevented. And the reason I haven't gone for the highest one is because it's Mads Hermansen, and Leicester haven't had that strong a season. So I think in the grander scheme of things, with the way that Henderson has been playing and the way that Crystal Palace have been playing, especially after a difficult start, I've gone for him ahead of Hermansen. He's got 9 clean sheets. I know I said that that's not the be all and end all because it is a defensive unit that sort of contributes to clean sheets, but I do think he's quietly been one of the best goalkeepers in the league, even just by eye as well. Some of the aesthetically pleasing shot stopping that he's had has been super impressive. So I've gone with Henderson there.
So this is I guess this leads to an interesting talking point when it comes to goalkeepers, because I always think of I don't know if you know a guy called Liez. He's a mate of mine, and he hates talking about goalkeepers. He thinks it's boring. And to that point, stay with me. To that point, I've gone for Jordan Pickford. And when you think of Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford, or English goalkeepers, the main one singular conversation we have about goalkeepers is when we are picking our England squads or England 11s, and like who should who should battle it out, who should be the number one. His clean sheet percentage is 31.3%. Is that partly down to just the way that Everton are playing? Maybe. But Everton allowed 12.7 shots against them per game, whilst City only allowed 9.7, Liverpool allowed 9.7, Arsenal allowed 9.3, which makes the fact that he's got 1.2 goals against per 90, which is the 4th best, and only Ederson, Alisson and Raya rank better, a better stat, in my opinion. Dangerous in front of Mark. But with Jordan Pickford, the 2 questions I have, and this is what will be good about today, is that we can kind of spin off, is 1, what does Dean Henderson have to do to get Jordan Pickford out of that England spot? And then from Jordan Pickford, who I think might have been last summer signed a new deal when it came to Everton, why do you think he's not been interested in going elsewhere? And do you think there's any teams that would ever go for him? Do you think he would just be that kind of, not one club man because he was at Sunderland, but do you think that'll be it for him because he's kind of got he's got a lot of what he wants? Yeah, it's a weird life, a goalkeeper's life.
I agree. He feels very Everton as well in the sort of the personality that he has. He's kind of got a bit of grit and determination about him, and I don't know whether elsewhere maybe that would not be as sort of congruent. I'm not entirely sure. I think to broadly answer your question, I think the difference in terms of maybe choosing the best England goalkeeper, it does always come down to distribution, doesn't it?
It does feel like that. Yeah, that's true.
If you were thinking about Nick Pope, historically with Nick Pope and Pickford, it would be like, well, they're both good shot stoppers, but Pickford's got a better distribution, and that would be the thing that would maybe give him the edge. And he does. He's able to play it short. I think the way that Everton play means that he does absolutely launch it up the field, Pickford. But he's got the ability to play it short and play it long, certainly in terms of skill set. I looked at Henderson. He's got 55% long pass rate, so he's slightly more inclined to go long. But
you've also got Mateta up there, I guess, as well, which might be a part of it, possibly.
Exactly. With all of this as well, it's not necessarily capability when we're looking into the numbers, it's stylistic. And this is actually a really important point for the whole of this episode, is that when you're sort of attributing metrics to players, how much of it is that is their skill set and that is individually what they do, and if you take them, put them into another team, this is what they'll do exactly the same, or is it that's what they're being asked to do by their manager, and that skill set or that trait is coming out as a consequence. I always use the example of Declan Rice with his marauding runs forward for West Ham, and the question being before he moved to Arsenal, would he have the same sort of stylistic profile, or would he be a bit more of a short and sharp passer?
That's funny you said it. I've been thinking about this a lot because when I've got to do a team of the season tomorrow, actually, And what you're starting thinking, you're going, do you know what, I'm going to settle on that player. And then you then think about, okay, someone's probably going to say something different, or there could be other options, or something get thrown at you. And so you've got to kind of put forward your reasoning behind it. And anything can get undone, because I think a big thing is opportunity. Like, how much opportunity do you have to do something, to play forward passes, or to be able to drive into space? Like Declan Rice, I think they utilise him actually in the last couple of games. The Real Madrid game, a good example of that, where they kind of work around the side and he was able to drive into that space. But often during the season, that Declan Rice, I had Clive Palmer sat with me here chatting about Declan Rice, and he was kind of, he understood the situation, but he sort of missed a sort of full throttle Declan Rice, because he wasn't being able to kind of do that. But that comes down to the style and the opportunities that you have as a team. So it's different per team.
I totally agree. And again, this is getting into an education on metrics, but I find this fascinating as well. We're only at goalkeepers, and there's going to be a long way to go. But I do find that interesting. And it's something I remember writing a piece about, I think last season, where I was thinking, okay, if you maybe don't have as much of the ball even, then your opportunity to do something per 90 is far lower as well, irrespective of style. It could be the same style that you're comparing two players in a similar team, but maybe it's just a difference in possession. So I like to try and, where possible, adjust things per 100 touches. So when all opportunities are equal, how likely are you to make that action? And then you can start to maybe tease out a player who's doing really well at a lower league club, or just a lower league full stop, and then start to see how maybe translatable that is if they were to then be put into another team.
Sorry, last bit. And I guess put that per 100 touches. It's not. You then want to go where that 100 touches, not 100 touches full stop, 100 touches in the middle third.
Yeah, you can really start
make a huge difference
to build it. Yeah.
Okay, right back.
Okay.
Total agreement, as Fabrizio would say here. We've both gone for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who, despite West Ham having quite a turgid season, he himself has had a bit of a new lease of life.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the perception of Wan-Bissaka is that he is defensive minded. He's incredible in a 1v1. I actually looked at the numbers on that. He's got a 78% tackle win rate, which is the best of any right-sided fullback or wing-back this season in the Premier League. He's not hugely front-footed in terms of his actions. He's kind of one of those where it's like, I don't want to engage, but if you cross me, I'll win.
Yeah,
I think he's kind of got that about him, that when he does engage, he often comes out on top. He's maybe got a bit of a negative perception after Manchester United, but that seems to be a Manchester United problem more so than a Wan-Bissaka problem, as we found out with a lot of players who have since left.
Could have
Manchester
done with him this year, weirdly.
Exactly right. Yeah, that would have been really suitable, which brings us on to the fact that he is actually really strong, was having a really strong season going forward in attack. He's, again, looked into the numbers on this. He's got the third most touches in the attacking third for West Ham, 17.9 per 90, only behind Jared Bowen and Mohamed Kudus. So he does get forward a lot. He's an outlet, especially with his athleticism as well, to get right onto the last line and put a cross in where possible.
Because it's a weird one with him, isn't it? Because you kind of, like you say, his defense. You think of him defensively first because he's elite at that. Like, my frustration with him was, it felt like with Man United, the game always shifted over to that left-hand side because you had, when fit, Luke Shaw, but probably more importantly, Bruno, generally, not always, but often drifting over to that side, but actually Rashford a lot of the time on that left-hand side as well, Garnacho, but sometimes on that left-hand side as well. So, like, I remember to always see, like, the passing networks, and it was just completely skewed that way. So I thought, as much as anything, it was one where I think he wasn't, I'm not saying he's the A side now, but there was maybe an equality of status here at West Ham, whereas at Man United, and I think this is something that JJ Bull was here, and he was saying that part of one problem you could throw at Man United, and spoiler alert, we're going to talk about Bruno Fernandes in this episode, is that deferring to Bruno. And I think with Wan-Bissaka, maybe this year with West Ham, that hasn't been the same situation. So he's been able to kind of crack on. And like you say, 1.7 successful take-ons per 90, second for all defenders in this metric. Like, that's not what we expect to hear about Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Do you think this is the truth? As in, like, do you think he'll stay in this kind of realm, or do you think he will revert back to the Man United time.
No, I think we saw it enough with his time at Crystal Palace as well to know that he's kind of got it in him to have a bit more of an attacking threat. And I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth in terms of, I was going to say that he feels like he was more subservient to others at Manchester United, totally. Whereas now it's like, no, go on. Like you got the ability, you've got the skill set to be able to do all these things. And we actually would like you to do this. We're relying on you to do this in certain times because, West Ham, when they are flying, they do get the ball into wide areas really well and cross it for people to get on the end of it. So he is perfect for that. And I've got his chances created up in front of me here, and you can see some that are a bit more kind of crosses from deep, but then also getting towards the byline and cutting it back or just playing it straight across the 6-yard box. He's got it in him.
Was it the Arsenal? I want to say it's the Arsenal game, but they did they beat them?
Away, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he'd maybe set that one up, but he was great all game long. So total agreement on Aaron Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah.
Well done, Aaron. And people get some flowers here today that we don't talk about normally. Actually, I love this list. It's so good. Anyway, sorry. Carry on. Centre-backs. We've got total agreement again.
We've got total agreement on this one as well. This isn't the theme of the rest of the podcast, but early doors.
Early doors, yeah.
We're
sort of getting a bit of trying to get a bit of camaraderie here. Then we'll like Terry, it'll end in a fight. Jan-Paul van Hecke as our centre back, or one of our centre backs, is the sort of latest in the staple of Brighton players to kind of make their way through. And I think he's broadly, I see a move for him at some point. When and for how much, I think Brian will just hope that it's loads and loads of money. And why have you popped him in this underrated list?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because you think about a centre-back and you should primarily focus on defending. But the first thing I actually thought about was how much he is just crucial to the way that Brighton like to build out.
Did you see what Gary Neville was saying last week about when he was playing, the players who got the ball were the centre midfielders, and now it's the defenders.
Yeah,
Lewis Dunk was on that list, and it's centre backs. How do you feel about
that? I broadly saw the point. I thought it was lacking in some nuance because it's not designed to keep the ball for long periods and just like knock it around for the sake of knocking it around, especially with Brighton, as we know, like from recent seasons. It's to obviously attract the opposition onto you. And ultimately, if the end of that sequence starts with 5 or 10 passes between Duncan, Van Hecke, or whoever it may be, and then ends with a shot on goal, then they have done their job really well. So I think that he was maybe, I understood the first half of it, but it needed the second half of it to be like, the reason why this is tactically interesting, because it then allows you to get into more lucrative situations.
I think there's also something in an overall respect from a defensive point of view, where teams go, well, you've got the ball here, and we don't want you to come inside our block. So we are gonna set off you, and if you two have got the ball, then we're okay right now to a point. So it kind of, I agree with you. I agree with Gary Neville's point in the sense of like, if it is just for that boring sake, then so be it. But if it often is a starting point, and I was thinking about. With Barcelona, no one's ever to go at Piqué and Puyol, but they probably would have been at that starting point. But then I guess from there, I mean, maybe the counterpoint to that is that they get the ball into Xavi or Iniesta pretty quickly.
Which actually does bring me on to the point. The reason that I've picked him specifically with the data is that he's got 30. So this is using a company called Footer Vision, which we have access to. They're a really good company, which essentially use broadcast tracking to create event metrics. Really interesting. They do some great work, and he's got 13.6 line-breaking passes per game, which is the most of any defender. So I kind of lent a little bit more on that one, that not only is he useful in the build-up, also using the same data company, he's got 16.3% of the total build-up within his team he's involved in, which is the third highest, only behind William Saliba and Virgil van Dijk. So he's crucial to the way that Brighton like to build up. Yeah. But then he is that one to then punch it through when the time's right. And he's got the responsibility, I suppose, to do that within build-up. And then they go. And when they go with pace. And that's, again, the sort of Brighton that we know has been the case for a couple of seasons. And that is exciting. Yeah. So, I don't know, playing like 5-a-side and stuff, sometimes you give it to someone and then they just write, okay, where's the goal? It's going back to the Gary Neville point, but where's the goal? And you're like, well, No, move the opposition around. Give it back to me. And then even though it looks like a really simple wall pass, maybe trying to be a bit like arrogant here.
We're
but it's
still getting them from half-time side experience.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Forget the Premier League winner. Listen to the five-a-side guy.
Gary.
Yeah. Listen to the Per Mertesacker lookalike. But then you can then recycle it onto somewhere else and move the opposition around. And then when that opportunity, that tiny gap opens because the opposition shape has just got an ever so slight, little gap in it, then, as I say, Van Hecke's the one to then punch it through the lines. But it's necessary, some of the preamble, if you like, to then get to that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a bit of a tangent, isn't it, when it comes to those things? But like, part of this as well, I would say, is yes, the bravery of the whole system. Also, like, one thing I absolutely do agree with Gary Neville is the sense of, like, I say this phrase a lot when I'm watching football: see it, play it, see it, play. Like, if you see that, I remember saying to someone like who wasn't great at football, and he was sort of trying to play. He wasn't good at passing, and he was trying to be careful with how he passed it. And he was also thinking, well, I wouldn't want that pass. I wouldn't be able to deal with that pass. And I said to him, like, that's not your problem. Your problem, your job is to get the ball from here to someone better or someone in front of you. So just get it to them and deal with it. See it, play it. And like, that is something that you don't often... sometimes goes by the wayside because there isn't that kind of bravery to see it and play it. And I think with Brighton, something that I really enjoy, and I can't imagine how Brighton fans feel when you feel like there's so much talent in that squad and they're not. They could be right. Like, in terms of all these teams battling out for the Champions League, like I think I saw something where they've drawn with the bottom three. And that's 6 more points or whatever it might be, like that would have made such a difference to them. But the talent is there. And with Jan-Paul van Hecke, as much as it's him having the ability to do it, there's midfielders in there that you can go, like, I don't need to worry about you being able to deal with it. Come back to the Man United thing, or Gary Neville and maybe his viewpoint on Man United thing. There was, with the Newcastle game, they're getting annoyed at Lindelof for kind of giving the ball away. But there was a moment where, like, the ball got played to Ugarte, and Ugarte just needs to, like, come out.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do that. He plays it back into that centre back. So this is called the ripple effect. There is, like, in terms of those progressive passes, as you say. I mean, the other thing to say: 1.8 progressive carries per 90 as well. His pass completion is 88.5%. All those fantastic metrics you put forward as well. Best progressive passing central defender in the league this season. So definitely a great shout as an underrated player here, but has good players around him that he can see it and play it too, but he does it as well. Second one, I've gone rogue here. You've gone less rogue. You've got, I guess there's this is being recorded in the light of, or the glow of a bit of a mistake from your one, but we won't take that away from him because he has been fantastic. You've gone with Murillo, Forest.
Murillo, and I should probably say, going back to the Dean Henderson one, that's after the weekend where he has conceded 5. But it's a whole season. It's not just the weekend. That's why data is used to strip back any emotion. But I've gone for Murillo, and it's maybe not hugely underrated, I suppose, because he has got a lot of respect, as has Nikola Milenkovic. But I don't know whether, of the two of them, I suppose it depends on who you speak to. It feels like Milenkovic has got a little bit more praise for how much he has been transformative to the Forest back line. He's just so strong aerially. He's just so strong at getting in the way of things. More. He's good in both boxes from set pieces as well. That I feel like he's maybe just got a little bit more credit. And Murillo is a very, very good box defender, essentially. So he's averaging the 4th most clearances per 90 and the 4th most blocked shots per 90 as well. So he just puts his body on the line. We know that to be true in the way that, again, stylistically, Forest like to play. He's not a front foot defender, as you can tell by those sorts of metrics. But I've gone for him.
But that's kind of that's the idea of the team, isn't it? As well. That's why, that's one where I think what's great with these is you can talk about. There's a nice contradiction with a lot of them. With someone like Murillo, so and this is kind of in the same theme. I've got Taylor Harwood-Bellis here, who obviously Southampton are having a very, very difficult season. And actually, these two teams play incredibly different football. So if you're thinking about either of these players and the ceiling that they can reach, there's a possible, obviously I would absolutely love, and I really hope they do, Nottingham Forest make it into the Champions League this season. But long term, you might wonder. Murillo, I think he's 21. I think he's quite a young guy, and playing in a team that does sit back and then does go and break. What you don't know with him, is what is he like in a really high rest defense where you're the average distance to the back line to the goal is miles up the pitch, and you've got to deal with a lot of different stuff. Taylor Harwood-Bellis. 4.1 progressive passes per 90, 88.1% pass completion, but he's probably laying a lot of passes and a lot of short passes. But he has been really important in terms of a team that is, in terms of reps as a young player. Mm-hmm. One, you've come through Man City. Two, he's kind of been all over the place, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, which I see as a massive plus in terms of experience and being able to, just deal with things that are coming your way because as I say, you've got more experience. But also, even in this Premier League year, having the ball a lot, he is one that you could argue you've probably seen more of the attributes that you'll need to see with Taylor Harwood-Bellis in a Southampton team that's got crushed this year than you have with Murillo.
I agree.
And no. I'm not saying he's better or worse. I'm just saying that's what's interesting here.
I do agree. I think the scalability of both of their attributes, if they were going to be picked up by I was going to say top half club, Forest are pushing for Champions League, but maybe to another club who might be playing in a slightly different way. I think, as you say, Harwood-Bellis has shown that. And then with other players around him who are receiving those passes, like you said in the example before with Van Hecke, if you've got players who are receiving those passes, he's got the capability to play those passes, and then you're less likely to lose the ball with better players around you. Obviously, I completely agree with you. It's exactly what I was going to say about the Murillo one, because we know that Forest play with a very deep line. I again looked into the numbers, but just to absolutely nail home the point that they do play with the lowest defensive line in the Premier League. So if you're able to just camp out and do that sort of box defending, there's a few players who are better. But start to push him up towards the halfway line, he becomes unstuck. And that was something that we spoke about Nottingham Forest on a dedicated episode in our Thursday podcast for our Tactics pod. And the main theme as well was talking about how if Forest do go behind, then they've got to chase the game, then they've got to push forward, and then they can start to come unstuck. Right. And that was before the Aston Villa game. Obviously, they had the Everton game since then, 2 losses. And it's not like we sort of proven right, but the idea that if you're winning, or you're in a winning game state, which they have been for a lot of the time.
So many times they've been 1-0, haven't they?
They can look so strong because they just keep it really tight. The spaces are really compact, which, again, is credit to the manager and the style. But if you were then it's almost that's the window into if he was being asked to push forward a little bit for a different team, that's maybe what he'd look like ever so slightly, because Forest had to come out in those games. Yeah,
and it's funny, that's what I mean. I don't think two things can be true, because he's exciting. Yeah. As centre-backs go, he's actually he likes to kind of drive with the ball and have a shot. He is a bit of a maverick, So, but I think it's interesting to be able to see those different very sort of micro situations for these kind of players. When it comes to Southampton, do you talk to scouts a lot or other analysts a lot who are trying to find kind of gems by in terms of stripping back the emotion you were saying, the narrative of someone's made a mistake, that means they're bad now. Like with Southampton, do you think there's a few gems in there at Southampton that could actually, in a nicer environment where the confidence is a bit higher, they're playing maybe a gently different style or have a bit more qualities to play a certain style? There's some players there that you think could get picked up?
I think so. I'm not as able to speak to as many analysts who are working within clubs as I'd like to, but I think if you think about it from a data perspective and analytics perspective, the shining light in the past decade has been Liverpool, in terms of realising the value of a player, irrespective of necessarily the team they're playing for, and where that team was in the league. So you think of Andrew Robertson, got relegated with Hull. Jurgen Shaqiri, if I'm not mistaken, got relegated with Stoke. And I think the season that Newcastle got relegated was when Gini Wijnaldum went down as well. So 3 players. Okay, Shaqiri was a good squad player, but otherwise 2 players who have been crucial to the success that Liverpool have had. And it's because the analytics team have said, well, actually, that what they've got there, again, that word scalable, can actually be transferred into our side, and we think that's going to be valuable. So I think Southampton are no different. As you say, there's probably a handful. Harwood-Bellis being one of them. I like Tyler Dibbling. There's no data attached to this, but I just like him. For vibe, aesthetically. I just think he's brilliant. I think Fernandes is a good player as well. Kyle Walker-Peters is a Premier League player of some description, and I'm sure that there's others within that as well. So maybe the mix and the alchemy of all of that and what they're being asked to do, especially for most of the season with Russell Martin, meant that, okay, things didn't work out, but it doesn't necessarily make them individually bad players.
Yeah, and you do just want, like, say they'd, I think Roy Keane was talking about it, but like they play Newcastle first game of the season, they've got 10 men, Newcastle. If they go win that, for whatever, something drops their way and they go and win that, and then they're starting okay, and then there's that bit more confidence, and then you just pop the ball with a bit, in a much better way. I was looking at we get sent the stats from the Premier League, and they were talking about it's like high turnovers. They're just so far ahead of everyone else in a bad way.
Yeah.
In terms of it leading to a shot, and that is, yes, it's the style, but I think at some point you naturally start to get a bit nervous in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of hurt them. Left back, you have gone for... This is a great shout again. I love your list.
Like it.
Your team's good. Your team's miles better than mine. Not miles better, just different. I just like your name. Ryan Ait-Nouri, who a lot of people... he's wondered, like, aesthetically, I think people kind of don't want to think he's as good as he is.
Yeah.
But he's really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
I agree.
Talk to me about it.
No, I totally agree. I think with all of this as well, like picking the 11, I don't know about you, it's a quick aside, but I don't know how much if you think about the balance of the side itself, or do you just pick the individuals? Because I was like, in my head, I was like, Ait-Nouri will be flying up the wing, and then I've got this one sitting in, and I don't know whether I'm just overthinking it. But this is probably a bit more of an individual. And he's played at wing back as well this season, more recently, of course, but can play at left back as well. But if we were talking about maybe the best left backs in the Premier League, I think people would probably say Milos Kerkez and Anthony Robinson. But obviously this is designed to be underrated. And I just think, before I go into the data as well, like aesthetically, he's kind of got his socks rolled down. He's got that technical ability. He's got a bit of flair. He gets forward really well as well.
Stamina,
He can, stamina being key to that. He can play in more advanced positions as a starting position as well, but he obviously likes to come onto the play as well. It's not really data. I will go into the data, but he's still only 23. And I feel like he's been around for a while. In my head, he's maybe 26.
Yeah.
But if a team wanted to maybe snap him up, not that we are trying to just sell all of these players, but I think that the fact that he's 23, you think of the resale value, the value that you get from him in general, super impressive. Another thing in terms of the stats, 3.4 take-ons per 90, which is the third most of any fullback or wing back this season. So he's got a bit of the responsibility to beat his man and drag Wolves up the pitch. And I think they were maybe in a bit of a false position somewhere in the middle of the season, and now they've got a bit of momentum behind them as well. But I think they are a really good side. They've got a lot of technical quality, Ait-Nouri being obviously key to that. Now, granted, he takes set pieces sometimes for Wolves, but he's actually averaging the same rate of chance creation per 90 as Anthony Robinson, which I think is kind of worth noting, that maybe goes under the radar a little bit for just how much he does create, for his side. I just really like him. He scored 4 goals from the left side of attack as well, which isn't, outrageous or the main thing that I'd lead with, but he's got a goal in him as well. And I just think he's strong. And I do think people would be surprised to know that he's 23.
Yeah, and I just quickly looked it up because I was intrigued to know, this is the other thing I think is important, is by the time you're 23, and I think Arsenal really zoned in on this, is you want players who have played games. And so from when he went to Wolves in 2021, he's played the season since, he's played 21 games, 23 games, 21 games, 33 games. He's on 31 games this season as well. So again, like to have 152 career starts already. Yeah. There's a lot of games in the Premier League. I think that sort of bodes well for what was it, the next 7 years at least, wherever he may be. I went for... and again, he had a mare. Well, it wasn't his fault. It was Vicario's
Whole
fault.
Season, not one game.
Whole season, exactly. Jed Spence. I kind of under. I think maybe I'm being a bit. I think maybe like as an overall, over the course of the season, I think if at the start of the season, few people would have said that. And I don't know if John Bass listens to this, but my mate John Bass, he said Jed Spence is going to come through this year, and he has. Yeah, he's done well. It's going to be interesting to see when it comes to the big games, or certainly big games in the Europa League, with Udogie who's back and actually played really well, and Pedro Porro in that first leg against Frankfurt. if Jed Spence kind of comes in and plays and displaces those two, or if Ange's going to stick with those two. But he has been very, very impressive this year. And a ripple for you, if it wasn't for Udogie's big injury, we may not have seen this level from Jed Spence. He was on the fringes of the Tottenham squad at the start of the season, only getting 64 minutes under Ange in the Premier League before match day 16. Let that sell. Spence then started against Southampton in the 5-0 win, Porro initially being rested, before Udogie picked up an injury in the 28th minute, making Spence shift to left back. Porro came on at right back. Been really, really good one-on-one. 79.2% of dribblers tackled, which is 8th in the Premier League. 2.6 tackles per 90, so defensively stronger than we realised. I actually still think there's a lot more you can see from him in time, because I would like to see him on the right-hand side. And when I think of him at Nottingham Forest, I think back to there's a lot of players that I think about them when they played us, QPR, and it was the year they went up. He was like, ugh, it was like you shuddered because when you just got it and went and just went, you know, when you can hear a player going, like it's like an engine, and they're going, like he was gone. And yeah, just a really, really exciting player on that right-hand side. We've not really been able to see that yet. So it's going to be interesting time for him because I think he's proven he's really good. So it'd be one where like I want to play. So that could cause maybe some mischief if they don't make a call to allow him to be the top guy. But at the same time, I think Porro's great, and I think Udogie's great as well. So
I think that Udogie and Porro are probably a bit more kind of the lieutenants for how Ange Postecoglou wants to play. So like as you say, Spence is. First of all, I completely agree. Defensively, he's so athletic, and you just cannot get past him. I didn't realise that. Yeah, you cannot get past him. He's so strong in a 1v1. Obviously, then he's got the attacking threat as well. But I feel like he kind of needs a little bit of freedom to just, as you say, just get going. But a lot of the way that Ange Postecoglou likes to play, if we are assuming that they are going to carry on playing the Ange Postecoglou way, is to have a lot of underlaps from your fullbacks and to make sure that you're in the right positions at the right times. And is he maybe a little bit more of a maverick in that regard, where he just needs a bit of space to run into? Has he got as much tactical discipline in an attacking sense as much of a defensive sense? That's more of a question than an answer. It may well be the case that it's a yes. But don't get me wrong, I do really like him. I think he's done really well this season since he's come in.
Just to chuck it out there, Man United, Ike Nori on the left, Jed Spence on the right.
Don't mind it.
Good work.
Don't mind it.
Never know. I mean, you haven't got endless money. Right, centre midfield. Love these picks. One, we've got a total agreement on, which is great. And we've spoken about him a lot over the last few years. Actually, let's go with let's go to it. So left-sided central midfielder for you. And he's in there for me as well. Ryan Christie.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 7.7 ball recoveries per 90, which is the most of any midfielder with 500 plus minutes. That is just not something that I think if you gave people, if you chuck that out there and do it, guys, let me know on Twitter. Ask your mates, right? Who's the player? 7.7 ball recoveries per 90, the most of any midfielder. I think people would be guessing for a long time before they said Ryan Christie.
Yeah,
he's. I really like this. I really like the idea of a player, and more now, of okay, yes, you think you're that player. No, come here. Like you're actually a centre midfielder.
Yeah.
And I think that the change of position for him has just been perfect. Yeah.
No, I totally agree, and he's so crucial to the way that the whole team ticks, because he is clearly tactically intelligent as well. The way that to have that many ball recoveries shows, you think about second balls and knockdowns, the way that Bournemouth do in and out of possession. You have to have an appreciation of space and where you think the ball's going to land in order to be able to read the game and do that. And to your point as well, he's shown how versatile he is to play as more of a defensive midfielder. A bit further forward, he can play really anywhere in midfield, and he just typifies, as I say, the way that Bournemouth like to play. They have the third highest pressure, so it's the third lowest PPDA. I don't know how familiar you are with PPDA.
Yes, I know. I was looking at it this morning. Yeah.
So it's the lowest number, which is the highest pressing intensity. I always feel like I need to clarify that, but they have the third highest pressing intensity, and PPDA is the number for that, which just shows how much they are. Obviously, harem, scare 'em, and the way they like to play, and they got the most possessions won in the attacking third across Europe's top 4 leagues. Oh, wow. So not including the French league. It just shows how much they really just push forward, and often he is the one to then hoover up that final one and then punch it forward. And then one thing again I looked at in terms of the numbers through Footer Vision, this data company, was that he has the second highest in terms of the counter-attacks initiated. Now, this is a defensive action that starts a counter-attacking phase.
Right.
So he's the one to basically get it, win it, and then they go. And it just feels like he is kind of the green light to be like, okay, we've got it. Now everyone's in position, and then they'll often punish teams in the transition.
Just to be fair on it, is that sort of a fortunate metric in the sense that says a lot about how Bournemouth play as much as anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Again, it's stylistic. It does come into that as well. But he is, to your point about ball recovery, I suppose it converges on the same sort of thing to be like, right, get it, and then, and he's the one who's trusted to do that, and it shows an element of real tactical intelligence.
Yeah, and I think like as a sort of, because before that, I think he was, sometimes he could play out wide, sometimes he could kind of play as a 10. I think he's got more that. I don't know if it's just because he's Scottish. He's got Andy Robertson. Andy Robertson, you wouldn't say he's blistering pace.
Yeah,
you'd just say he's like kind of greyhound, incessant,
always at 100%.
Yeah, like 4% body fat. Like it was just like stop. Like there's a player, Connor Bradley. When I look at his frame, I think I'd hate to play against you because he looks sort of sharp.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? He's like strong, like sort of skinny strong.
Wiry.
And I think Ryan Christie, maybe I'm pushing this sort of Scottish agenda maybe, but I think that's what I loved that idea. I remember thinking it way back with Ryan Giggs when he'd lost just a bit of pace, but you've still got great feet, a great engine in terms of going back and forward, and the ability to get yourself out of problems in terms of being press proof. And they put him in midfield, and he got like 4 more years out of him. And I think Ryan Christie, actually, it's less about more years, but you've got a higher ceiling actually by having him in there because he'll do the work, win the ball, read the game, and when he's got it, 1.7 key passes per 90, 5 passes into the final third per 90, and maybe down to the style of Iraola ball. But yeah, he's been fantastic, and I think it's one where he will stay. At Bournemouth, you would imagine, and the second pod we're going to talk about a couple of Bournemouth players that might make way. He's actually going to be so important in terms of like the new people who come in or the new manager who comes in and keeping it all kind of moving and Bournemouth not moving backwards. Second centre midfielder. This is more my DM, so we'll do the same with you. 2 different players here, but great shout from you, Sanderberg or Sanderberg, depending on your preference. And I've gone for Andre. At Wolves. I'll go first. Andre, I love this, right? 27 appearances, no goals, no assists. But he's still class. That I like that. 92.6% pass completion, 4th amongst midfielders in this metric. Only Kovacic, Curtis Jones, and Nico Gonzalez have higher. 4.1 passes into the final third. Him and Gomez are just a lovely little pair in there for Wolves. Pereira's done a great job with them. And there was a lot of people looking at him. I know Liverpool were looking at him for quite some time.
Yeah, Fulham as well, I think.
Yeah, and he was at Fluminense, and he's made that move. Still really young. I'm intrigued to see what kind of happens with him. And do you know what this episode is kind of teaching me a little bit is that, like, Wolves aren't as bad. Wolves are kind of like fell on their feet, if that's even a phrase. Like you're actually kind of excited about a lot of the players in that group. Maybe they're just because they're in a solid period of form. I don't know. But Andre looks like a really, really tidy player for them that can allow them to. Because I think if you're Wolves, you want to be Fulham, you want to be Bournemouth, you want to be in the top half, you want to be Brentford. And I think players like this, if they can stick around long enough, you can have some fun there.
Yeah. They've got really good technical players. And I suppose Wolves' model to a certain extent is to players coming straight from the Brazilian league to say, okay, well, come to us. We will put you in the shop window, if you like. And if you are really good, then you will go on to a bigger and better side. Yeah. If the time and the money's right, essentially, yeah. And it took him a bit of time to maybe get settled, as you'd imagine, because of the pace of the Premier League. But yeah, as across the whole team, his dynamic within that is super strong. He's a really good technical player, and you can see again the scalability that he could play in a.
That's true.
I say a better team. I don't want to be disrespectful to Wolves, but you can see that he's got that technical ability.
But mate, like So QPR, and we've got these young lads, and then they sign new deals. The way I celebrate it, I go, yes, we're going to get money from them.
Right. Yeah.
Like you kind of that's what Brighton do
Yeah.
that, and that's what can get you into the Champions League if you are outside the those, I want to almost say 8 super big established monster teams now. Sander Berg, he's had a great season because he's been on his own there in that Fulham midfield a little bit with a lot of techie players around him. He's had a lot to do.
Exactly right, because I think the idea, people think that maybe Fulham play in a 4-2-3-1, which is true to a certain extent, but I think when they build up, it's a 4-3-3, and he is the sole pivot. He receives the ball, and then he's got the 2 8s who then play either side of him, and they have their nice little networks on either wing, and I really like it. I think the way that they do it is really good. I think in the context of where Fulham were last season, with João Palhinha being the destroyer of the team, I think that's maybe fallen a bit more to Sasha Lukic this season. And I think that Berger is the one to just get it and just keep the ball ticking over and getting it forward into the key players and doing it to great success. So I know I mentioned pass completion, I don't think is the strongest metric, but under pressure, I think it maybe just adds a little bit of an extra layer here. So this is using data from Skill Corner that his 92% pass completion rate under pressure, so when he's got someone on him, is second in the Premier League only to Mateo Kovacic. So it just shows that you can get it to him, trust him with it, he'll pop it off to someone else, and then we move forward sort of thing. And we know the way that Fulham like to play is to obviously get it wide, and he's not necessarily as involved in that regard. But
to your point, you're right. He will also be on his own there as that single pivot. So you're one under pressure because probably the opposition smell blood a little bit. In terms of if we can win it there, we're in. Because there's not that contingency plan of a double pivot. So for him to take it under pressure and be that good is it's really
and
really
he's strong, isn't he? He's quite
big.
He's bigger than you. I saw him against Liverpool live earlier this season, and where the vantage point in Fulham is quite low down, and you really get an appreciation for the speed and the size of these players. He was massive. And then he was the Liverpool game as well, where he drove forward for, I think, the second goal for Fulham. And he's got that ability as well to stretch his legs. If the space opens up, he's not just going to be too safe with his passes, as we mentioned before.
So I saw him against Sheffield United, QPR against Sheffield United, and he was kind of playing as a, at the very least an 8. And he's able to get in the box. And I remember thinking, oh God, he's a big boy. Like I didn't realise that. And then it's interesting, again, sort of seeing the skill set of a player. And this was something I kind of, at the start of the season, I remember I was playing golf with my mate, John, who's a big Fulham fan, and I was saying, I'm worried about you lads. Like, you've got to get someone in. Because it just it looked on the face of it like a little bit flimsy. Like you've got to get someone a bit, robust in there. And I guess, he as a purchase has been really, really good, and in terms of him staying fit as well, it's probably been quite crucial because, as I say, they've kind of doubled down on Pereira, Smith Rowe, Iwobi, like Harry Wilson. You've got a lot of guys who are going to kind of get it. So he's done brilliantly. He's done really, really well.
I agree with you that he's played a lot of minutes, and I think Fulham in general have been the most settled side in the Premier League. I think in terms of the unchanged starting 11s, I think they've had more than any other Premier League side this season. So Silva's been able to keep a consistent side. They've been fortunate with injuries to a certain extent, and he has just been able to kind of build up that form and that consistency, as have, I suppose, most of the players there.
Right, next centre midfielder. I'm going a bit punchy here. I've had a real turn on him, although you've gone for a player from a big club as well. So let's do mine first, if that's okay, because I'm intrigued to get your thoughts on this, on the constant mystery that is Manchester United. I've gone for Bruno Fernandes. 6.2 ball recoveries per 90, 8.7 progressive passes per 90, second highest amongst midfielders. That metric. Only Odegaard's got more with 9.6. And again, for a Man United team that struggles to progress, 2.6 key passes per 90. I know he tries a lot of those passes as well, and as you can see, I'm chucked his pass completion in here. But he's had to play as one of those. It's been so awkward for Man United from this formation and profile situation. And I've watched them try several different things, and Bruno has been part of trying those several different things, be it him playing as one of those 2 10s or playing in that double pivot, or kind of playing in a bit of both actually at times as well. I just generally, I have a lot of respect for him, because I think every time I watch them, I feel like as a group, as a collective, it feels poor. But he is the sort of shining level of quality within that team, and to being positive, keeps making runs. You see him you see him everywhere.
Yeah.
But everywhere in a way that makes sense. I think previously with other managers, you might have gone, stand still for a second, like you're kind of trying to do it a bit too much. Here, I think he's really trying to help the team, and I think he's not got a lot of help. When it comes to Man United under Amorim, there's a lot of. It's obviously not gone well. Do you see any sort of sparkles in it, or do you think they've got better or worse?
I certainly don't think they've got better. I agree with you. Just going back to the Fernandes example, is that he did used to be the one, like, you can never question his endeavour across his whole Manchester United career. But I think that, as you say, previously, probably under Ten Hag, he was defensively as well, just running to try and close down the ball, and then actually making sure that United were actually more out of shape.
Right.
Well, by doing that, than if
true.
he'd have just kept his position.
Yeah.
Whereas, as you say, maybe not quite as much under Amorim. Have they got better or worse? I mean, I do think it's probably a bit of a cliche, but I do think that just having a full pre-season to actually really work on what the dynamic of the team needs to be, what the patterns need to be, will be crucial to actually understand. Because Amorim says that it's not hugely different in terms of the way that they like to build up compared to what they were doing under Ten Hag, but it is still different, and there are different roles and responsibilities. Of course, he needs the players to actually execute that as well.
Yeah.
So this is all kind of, I guess, things that we already know, but they've certainly not got better. There's green shoots of recovery sometimes, isn't there? You just think, okay, maybe there is something. If that can catch fire, then maybe they'll go on to a good run towards the end of the season, which might still be the case, because obviously they've got Europa League as well. But it just falls flat maybe the following game. So
yeah, in terms of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I'm just, like you say, maybe it's a style thing sometimes. They cannot cope with Newcastle United. Like both times that they've played them, they've just been
the intensity
run over. Yeah. Whereas I watched the Lyon game, and I was thinking it wasn't great. But then they made a couple of substitutions, and Mason Mount was there, and Bruno dropped into that double pivot, and he was with Casemiro, but you could see him maybe playing there with Ugarte, and Xerxes was on and linking it up much better. Kobbie Mainoo came on, and it was one where Bruno went, so Mainoo just popped into that double pivot, and I went, oh, yeah, like, okay, Dorgu was gone. Delo looked more comfortable, because thank God he's on the right hand side now. I can't watch him on the left hand side again. And I was like, okay, a confident Mason Mount, a confident Mainoo interchanging with Bruno Fernandes. It gives him that kind of freedom to drop deep but get involved as well. Xerxes, like, linking it up and having intelligent players around him who will stand off him at the right time, go beyond him at the right time as well. Like Dorgu is someone who can get up and down. There's a lot there. I saw it for a second. And then Onana threw one in. Yeah. So, like, that's what my fear is, and I said this a long time ago, is that the goodwill, that there was so much goodwill for Amorim. I just fear how much of that is going to be utterly eroded by the time you get to the first game of the season and the next season. And that, because that credit has somewhat been eroded. So he'll get a pre-season, and then the pressure that Man United have, as opposed to any other team, to start well and do well, is enormous. And I think I've said to a few people, we sat here, we ranked every team's most used team, and I had them 12th. And the question I would say that I don't think media will acknowledge, but is probably the truth, is if you've got a team that's currently, where are they, 15th or something, could legitimately finish 17th this year. Easily. Yeah. Like, easily. You give them a pre-season and a couple of components. What is a good season for Man United next year? Like, it's not Champions League. I think that feels like outrageous. So, like, if you take away the badge, you would go, well, there's a team that's like 15th, but I would say they're the 12th best squad or team. A good progression is 7th, 8th, right? But if they're 7th or 8th along that road, there'll be some losses in big games on a Super Sunday, and that could cause this whole big storm that might make them crumble again. So I just think it's so complicated for them to get a footing.
And that's before you even think about the club in general, everything that's going on to make sure that they are regenerated to be the Manchester United that we know them to be, which I think, the question that a lot of people have asked is like, how long will it be until they get back to the top? And it is maybe going to be, 5 to 10, 8 to 10 sort of ballpark figure that you need to see progression year on year. Again, I go back to a Liverpool example, but they made some really crucial signings each summer that then just kind of at least allowed the fans and even neutrals to see, okay, I can see where this is going. And I know this has been said sort of widely in the media, but I think that's probably the best way to answer your question, that you can just, even if it's 8th, it's 8th with a view to, we're not far off 4th with the way that we're playing. It's really clear how we're playing. But if it's 8th in a really wishy-washy way that it has been at Man United for the past few seasons, then it's like, well, it could be 4th, or it could be back to 16th again, and it's really volatile.
That's a great point. You need some hits. You need some hits. You need some transfers that come in. You go, that's absolutely worked.
They've not just Bruno Fernandes. It's all it's been really in the past. Few years.
Exactly. Who has it been? Do you know what I mean? Fascinating stuff. And this is before the other thing is, just to chuck in that last thing. Say they win the Europa League. That kind of everyone goes. It's a moment to go. Oh, okay, we've got the Champions League. Them in the Champions League next year is not helpful.
No.
Weirdly, financially, of course it is, but otherwise, it's not.
No, I agree.
You've gone for Dominic Szoboszlai. Everyone who knows me knows I love Szoboszlai.
Yeah.
Or Szoboszlai. I say it wrong a lot.
Szoboszlai, yeah. I've maybe cheated ever so slightly if we're going to stick to a 4-3-3, because he is a bit more of an attacking midfielder, but he's able to play sort of anywhere within midfield. In that regard. And I think it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on it as well. It's not necessarily because of any of his on-ball numbers or his attacking metrics, but again, using this data from Futtervision, 10.9 counter pressures per game is the most of any player in the league. So gets the ball back quickly when Liverpool win it, and he sort of sets the tone for the way that Liverpool like to be out of possession.
When they win it, when they lose it.
So when they lose it, he is the first one to counter press. Sorry if I said that wrong. That I think he's just one of those that is a manager's dream to just keep that intensity going, and then others follow as well. I think that he's very tactically disciplined in general. He'll push forward into a bit of the 2 of the 4-4-2 out of possession. Sometimes it's a 4-2-4, but he kind of knows really where to cut off passing lanes as well. So he's really strong out of possession, which is so strange to say when you're talking about a number 10 in an attacking team who's about to win the league. But I do think that he is, as I say, a manager's dream. And again, this episode is about like underrated. And I found a quote from Slot, and he said that, in my opinion, he is a bit underestimated. Not by me, but he doesn't always get the credit for the fact that he's very important for this team because his work rate is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I do think it's not just, his own work rate of how strong he is, but much like the Christie example, how much that kind of ripples across the team to other people. And they say, okay, well, if he's gone, I've got to then follow it up. And it just keeps that consistency across the team. And Liverpool have fallen off a little bit in the intensity the past few weeks, but again, across the whole season, there was a period around winter where he was the one who just set the tone.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's kind of, he's I can't think of a better word, but he's without him having the ball, but Liverpool having the ball, his positioning can be so clever and awkward for the opposition, because little movements kind of hold off a centre-back from doing what they want to do, or a centre midfielder doing what they want to do. Like, it's so kind of underrated. I think it's a great shout. And yeah, we've lauded him a few times on the channel this year. Right wing. I've gone. Go on, let's do you. I keep going first, don't I?
No, it's fine. I think this one does fit within the category of underrated.
Yeah.
And I've gone for Jacob Murphy, not least because I feel like people thought, I think he's 29 years old now, that people thought of him as a bit of a squad player, maybe not even up to the standard of a Newcastle squad player. And not only has he got into the squad, the team, the first 11, but he's got 7 goals and 10 assists in the Premier League this season, which is comfortably the highest of his Premier League career, at least. Of course, he's played in the EFL as well. I think it's his most league minutes already for the past 5 seasons as well. So he's getting the trust to play. He averages 3.9 open play crosses per 90. That's the 7th most of any player in the league this season. And the crossing thing I find really interesting because it's something I've done as a piece fairly recently because he's a right-footed player on the right side, and it's quite refreshing to see. And I think that not only is it just a bit of a shift from maybe the norm now tactically, but that it then allows Isak to make those runs and make those runs knowing that the ball's going to come in versus maybe a Doku who's going to then take on his man, cut inside, maybe take on his man again, maybe cut inside again, maybe take on his man again, and then Haaland's just like disinterested and everyone's tracked back, and that's maybe being overly critical of Manchester City. But the point remains that there's a bit of an old school element of get it out your feet and then sort of put it in the delivery. I think it's 7 assists in all competitions that Murphy's got for Isak specifically, so they've got a really good partnership. Everyone's obviously lauding Alexander Isak for good reason, but what he's being provided with is often chances on a plate. And I've looked at Murphy's expected assists in the Premier League. Of any player, he's the 6th highest in terms of expected assists. So that's the quality of the shot that is assisted per 90 minutes, 0.35. So he's averaging essentially chances worthy of an assist every 3 games, which is super strong, especially considering maybe what the perception of Jacob Murphy is.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect shout for exactly that, because I think people almost can't get. It's a bit like Chris Wood. You can't get. It's very, and I've definitely been guilty of this. I think with Jacob Murphy, that you would feel like there needs to be that upgrade. And again, this summer, regardless of his numbers, people will go probably still need a right winger, which is cruel because I think actually what's being lost here is just because you started here at one level doesn't mean you can't get to another level if you are professional and intelligent. And that's what both of those guys are. I also think it's something that's been on my mind a little bit recently is the kind of getting that pass in front of the back line and it coming, like you see it with Salah's done it so many times, often with that Trivela, but you get it more naturally with Jacob Murphy. Both the goals he scored have been, it's a cross and it's come all the way along and there he is on the back stick. Yeah. But then the other side of it, of him putting that cross into the same position, you see it with Salah a lot. The amount of times he's just going to put it to that area on the other side of the defence, if that makes sense. Yeah. So less so about the striker, more so about kind of just hitting that area. And if there's a striker there, then great. But if not, that it'll be Gakpo or Luis Diaz on that left-hand side, kind of being there to hurt the opposition. Because again, I think so many teams are so compact now. And I think there's a real asset in that. Yeah. Jacob Murphy is a really, really good shout. I've got a right-footed right winger as well, actually. I've gone for Noni Madueke. I think he's got, be careful what I'm saying here, he's got a bit of the Ronaldos in him. Wait. I think from an attitude point of view, I think he's fearless. Yeah. I think he's got a high opinion of himself, and I have got no problem with that at all. And I like the way he takes on players. I like the way that he can go kind of both ways. He's getting better and cutting inside, but he wants to score goals. He wants to be the guy, a really direct dribbler. And maybe that's something that's going to continue to kind of come back in. Let's see. But 6.9 progressive carries per 90, ranks 3rd for all wingers in this metric, only behind Doku and Savio. 4.2 carries into the penalty area. Can he be better with his finishing? Yeah. But I think that's actually more sort of the cute ones inside the box. He's got a great strike on him at different times. And I think he's one of those ones where I really believe we've not seen the ceiling of him. I think he's going to have that Ronaldo attitude and work rate of wanting to be fantastic and not. I don't see him having any problems with confidence. And what that means to me is that I don't see him having real dips in form. Personally. Well,
I was going to say, do you think he'll have that Ronaldo season almost where it's like, okay, he went from a threatening winger who's maybe a little bit volatile in his output in front of goal to, okay, he's gone and scored 18 goals.
I think the only problem is he is an out-and-out winger for me, whereas Ronaldo sort of became a forward, didn't he? So that might be the only difference there. But in terms of, say, like a comparison to someone like Doku, I think he's got so much more nuance than Doku. Certainly right now, maybe that's a confidence thing with Doku. But I feel like with Doku, he's frightening, and I would be useless defending him against him. I probably know what he's going to do and where he's going to go.
Yeah. Or you could, put structures in place to mean that even if he does beat you, you've still kind of got him down a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, it's like, you know, if you think of the Liverpool game, or several games, right? They'll chuck him on, he'll beat Trent, but Konate's there, waiting for it.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like, there's a bit more nuance to Noni Madueke, and I wonder if he's like broadly, it's a weird one, but like, is he likable? Do you know what I mean? Declan Rice is just like really likable. I'm not sure Noni Madueke gives off that aura, which is probably massively unfair, but because of that, he's maybe not getting like the flowers I think he deserves, because I think he's class.
There was the Wolves example, wasn't it, where I think he said that Wolves wasn't a nice
for penalties
place.
A few times as well, isn't he?
Yeah, so it's just maybe influences things a little bit, but I'm sure he's a lovely guy.
Yeah, totally. That's it. Like, I think it's stuff. Sometimes it's your
good
general
football
body
arrogance.
Language. I think it's good football arrogance personally.
Yeah.
Where are we now?
Final one.
Left wing.
Oh, left wing.
Left wing.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Great shout. Producer Kai will be thrilled. Iliman and Jai.
Yeah.
He's good.
I like him.
He is good.
With all of these as well, it does have an element of just aesthetically, I like this player as well. And there's some data to go with it. It's not necessarily that these players are at the top of every metric, but I do think, especially when we're thinking of underrated, I think that, well, he's probably not underrated among Everton fans. He's got the most league goals, 7 league goals of any Everton player. He's had a bit of an injury recently, and he's just coming back into form. Some of his touches and his performance against Nottingham Forest at the weekend was just brilliant. The way that he brought down a long ball just when he was through on goal, and I think it was just too close to the goalkeeper. But you can just tell that he's got that ability to just kill a ball dead and just drop a shoulder.
Works hard too.
He works really hard. Yeah, he's got a lot of industry. I think that he was the only kind of bright spark under Sean Dyche that Everton fans could kind of cling on to. And now I think he's got a bit more freedom to actually express himself a little bit more. He can play on the left, as I'm putting him here, but he can also play behind the striker as well and be that sort of centre attacking midfielder. He's averaging 6 take-ons per 90 minutes this season, which is the 5th highest of any player in the Premier League. Again, I look towards their age as well, just thinking, again, we're not trying to sell all these players off, but he's still only 25, and he's did well at Sheffield United. The Marseille was it just over a year. That did okay there, but obviously I think coming back to the Premier League and putting the performance that he's putting in, I think that it sort of does again fit into the underrated category.
I totally agree. Yeah, because I think when you think Everton, you think industry. Whereas he's got a bit of magic about him. He really, really does.
Yeah,
I think he's. I'm excited to see him next season under David Moyes. Stephen Pienaar regen.
Yeah, that's a shout. Yeah,
I think so.
Don't mind that at all.
Left wing, I've gone for Alex Iwobi. I think this needs to be spoken about. Iwobi is so good. Like he's sorry. He's just like, I think he's one of those ones where he's not outrageously fast or. But the point is he's sort of got high levels of everything. He can dribble with the ball. He can have nice interplay with some of those other players at Fulham. I think he knits it together really well. Has a really key dynamic with Anthony Robertson on that left-hand side. Versatile. Has played in several different positions for Fulham and in his career. 4.3 progressive carries per 90. 3.3 carries into the final third, which is second of all wingers with over 1,000 minutes. Only Doku has more. 1.2 carries in the penalty area per 90. And just some lovely passes, lovely moments of vision, playing the smart pass quickly at the right time sometimes as well, which would probably go underrated. 8 goals, 5 assists. Yeah, I think he's another one where I think when I have this idea, and Fulham have done this really well, but those players that because they were at a big team, the rest of their career is a failure.
Yeah.
Well, actually, they're a better player now than they were then.
Yeah.
Because they've had all those experiences. Success isn't linear. And I just think he's a cracking player now, and part of the reason why Fulham have done really well this year.
I agree. I think that Anthony Robinson on the left-hand side gets a lot of credit for his assists and his creativity in general, but I do think it's that network on the left-hand side through a lot of the season where he's able to play on both sides. But when it's been him, Emil Smith-Rowe, and then Robinson on the overlap or underlap sometimes, it's the three of them. Yeah. It's the triangle that they're just so good at. He's versatile, as I say, on either side, but he'll sometimes drop in and play wing-back out of possession on occasion. And he's another example, I think, of a manager's dream.
Yeah.
To be able to just be like, okay, well, I know wherever I put you, you're going to be technically strong, tactically disciplined, and you'll probably have some output, along the way as well. So I do think, for all that, Fulham have got a lot of credit this season. It's his role within a lot of those kind of networks that have been crucial. I think he's had a really good season.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think a real undercover manager on the pitch. Actually, I don't think anyone would ever think that. But I think he is. And then our striker. So, if you, and by the way, just a quick plug. I don't normally do this, but a lot of these players we've spoken about on the breakdown on the Premier League YouTube channel this year. So if you don't check out those videos, please do, because it's one where what's great with the Premier League is that we can kind of, like we did a video on Wolves last week.
Yeah.
Like we do a video on different teams. So go check them out, and because that would be good for me. So striker position. I'll have both these shouts again as well. I'll go first. I'll get mine out of the way because I want to hear you talk about your pick.
You were going to say his name then.
I knew I knew he did. Strand Larsen, who, that video last week, we spoke about Strand Larsen and his movement. Some really interesting stats here on him. 12 goals, 2 assists, 0.25 goals per shot per 90. Is that right? Hang on. Basic conversion rate, sorry. Mm-hmm. His only Chris Wood has a better conversion rate for strikers with 1,000 minutes. 64% of his shots are on target, which is high. It's the highest of any Premier League striker. 0.5 goals per 90 from an XG of 0.4. So he's exceeding his XG this year. 2.3 aerial duels won. Well, he's massive. That should be the case, which is good. 6'4", but he's actually, he's been very, very efficient. Still only 25. And it's one where there's a lot of chat about. I was listening to Dave Azzopardi and talk about Strand Larsen, and the person who's doing a podcast with, they were talking about Liam Delap, and they're saying, would we want, do we want Liam Delap? And he's like, there's a clause, right? Do we want him? Yeah. And they would go, well, I don't know, because Strand Larsen has been really, really good this year, and probably is only going to get better. So would you want to take, who would start if it was Strand Larsen up against Liam Delap? I'm not saying it is Strand Larsen, but the fact that that's the conversation shows that in his first year, he's had a bloody good season.
Yeah, and I only realised this morning that he's on loan from Celta Vigo. I thought he was at Wolves permanently, so I don't know what the clause is there.
Yeah, I think they've got the option. I presume they've got the option.
I think it's an option to buy, yeah. I think, again, I don't want to speak in cliches, but it does feel like he's good feet for a big man territory as well, because he's able to hold the ball, play it, and be the kind of the stereotypical, knock it on and maybe. And
he'll actually run the channel here and there as well. Yeah. It's him and Haaland up top of Norway is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. Would they play together?
Well, do you know, Sweden have got a really good team as well, and they've got Gyökeres and Isak.
Yeah.
And so at some point you just go, well, no one's sitting on the bench here, right? Both of you go, and they'll make it work. I imagine if Larsen's good enough, they'll have to make it work, won't they? Yeah. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, especially in recent weeks with Cunha being out as well. I think people, thinking about fantasy Premier League and stuff, people thought, I might put Strand Larsen in and he'll do all right. And then he's obviously in such good form at the moment. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good shout. I think that because of the nature of his profile, he's more likely to get good shot conversion because he's going to get into good high quality chances. So he's going to be closer to goal. Which makes complete sense, and I think it just shows the strength of his movement as well to be in the right place at the right time. So again, I get a bit fixated on age, but to realise that he is only in his mid-20s shows again that there's a few more years in him yet.
Yeah. And then your pick. Now, I think this is a great underrated shout because I think there are things that have got nothing to do with maybe the output that will make people just forget about this player. Mm-hmm. The club, I think people they'll just kind of forget it. But actually there's a clue in the club. And then I think the other bit being maybe the sort of physical frame of this player as well. Mm-hmm. As a striker, when we're thinking strikers, we're thinking Strand Larsen, we're thinking Haaland, we're thinking Isak, we're thinking Lewandowski, we're thinking big 6'2" dudes. Yeah. And this guy is not that. But in terms of what he's able to do, he's been outstanding this year, and he's a really good player. Do you want to reveal the name?
Yeah, thank you. That was a good build-up to say that Johan Visser is my striker, and I agree with everything that you just said. And he just keeps scoring when you don't expect him to, and sometimes maybe it's because it might not be an important goal as well, or it might be, Yeah, it might not be on Super Sunday or something. It maybe doesn't catch the eye as much, but he scored 15 Premier League goals this season, which is a really strong return for a Brentford side who have had a really good season overall. But maybe, again, it's just been lost. I don't know. I think he went from being that super sub, early doors to now being a bit more of the main man or playing more regularly. And I think maybe because of how people thought of him initially, they sort of carried that through, and they think that, but he doesn't play that much if you're not a Brentford watcher regularly. But he's now the leading Premier League goal scorer ahead of Ivan Toney. And I know that Brentford have not been in the Premier League that long, but he scored 41 goals in the Premier League since he joined, which is really impressive.
I wouldn't have guessed that. No.
Right. I don't think he was known to be a prolific goal scorer when they got him, but I think that as well as the goals, which is an obvious one, he is really good out of possession, really good in pressing and really aggressive. He can lead the line in terms of going in behind and be a bit more of kind of the spearheading figure. He can drop in as well. He's not, afraid to just play some nice intricate passes as well. He can have that sort of fox in the box. Well, I think that's probably when I think of Visser, he scored some absolute screamers, but I think of him more as a fox in the box, one-touch finisher, and just efficient and clinical, which he's got in him. But
but like kind of creative with it to a point, in terms of the finishes.
Yeah,
it's like even the one he scored the weekend, didn't he? It's just sort of like he's got like a lovely little bit of ingenuity as a striker. He seems very comfortable in front of goal.
No, he'll improvise sometimes. It might not look like a conventional finish, but it's just, well, what do I need to do? I need to put the ball in there, and he'll find a way to do it rather than it just be like, okay, we've seen this sort of goal before. But again, just thinking about the numbers, if I'm not mistaken, from a non-penalty goal rate, his goal rate is better than this season Ollie Watkins, among many others. Ollie Watkins, Diogo Jota, Chris Wood, Evan Nielsen, and Strand Larsen, per my notes from from yesterday. I'm pretty sure that is the case. Of course, there's many others, but I tried to pick out those ones, and I didn't want to cherry pick them too much. But they're strikers who kind of lead the line a little bit. You've maybe got wingers who are maybe stronger attacking numbers, but again, it just shows like you would never have thought that. So I think again it fits in the category of underrated because I come back to it. He just kept scoring goals this season.
We're going to talk about Visser and Mbeumo in the second podcast, which will be out later this week. Mark, that was really, really good fun. Really, really enjoyed that. Thank you for all the stats. Appreciate it, mate. Where can people find you if they want to hear more from you?
The Athletic, of course, they can find many good writers on The Athletic. We are... Every week we do a tactics podcast, which you can find wherever you get your podcasts. I've never said that before out loud. That's very fun. The Athletic Tactics Podcast is the name of that. I'm on Twitter as well, X, Mark Carey 93. Google me.
Google him, find him, hunt him down. Guys, thank you so much. If you don't want to miss that podcast, do us a favour. Follow this podcast wherever you get yours, especially on Spotify where you can watch us, and give us a 5-star rating wherever you do your ratings. Click all the buttons and do all the things. So many great podcasts on this podcast. Is one of the highlights of my week, to talk to really smart people like Mark and have a bit of fun. And we're going to do another one on Friday, so make sure you do not miss it. Speak soon.